You know, President Trump has directed U.S. Central Command to restart the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz under the umbrella of Project Freedom. To be clear, this operation is separate and distinct from Operation Epic Fury. Project Freedom is defensive in nature, focused in scope, and temporary in duration, with one mission: protecting innocent commercial shipping from Iranian aggression. American forces won't need to enter Iranian waters or airspace. It's not necessary. We're not looking for a fight, but Iran also cannot be allowed to block innocent countries and their goods from an international waterway.
That is the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, speaking this morning at a 7 a.m. press conference regarding the status of the Iran war. Now, we've heard the president articulate multiple times that we've beaten them, that we have decimated all of their capabilities. There is something going around about kamikaze dolphins. Maybe we'll get to that here in a minute. But the question is, with the Strait of Hormuz, is it open or is it not? We've got a plan from the Department of War and the commander-in-chief to reopen it, and I'm curious how it's going. Let's get to our next guest. Jim Talent joins us once again, former United States Senator from Missouri, Congressman as well, and chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. Senator, thank you for being with us today. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back with you, Annie. And just for you, I watched that whole press conference.
Thank you.
Just so I'd be ready. But I also took notes, but now I can't find my notes.
Well, they're all in your head.
It's very common for me. I'm rather absent-minded.
That's all
but
right.
I'll do my best.
So talk to me about this. I think I'd like you to take it to the simplest form possible because, there's a ceasefire and then there isn't a ceasefire. There is a ceasefire, but there are also people shooting missiles. It's very confusing. A lot of people listening to this coverage, they want to know when it's going to end so that they don't have to pay $4.29 for gas or $4.79 in Illinois. What is happening in the Strait of Hormuz, and what is the goal? What's the end goal here so that we can start to get back to normal?
Yeah. So it is a separate and distinct operation in the sense that, we first eviscerated their military capabilities, their air defenses, et cetera. I won't go through all that. Then began throttling the Iranians economically in an attempt to force them to agree to terms on, our terms for a permanent end. And now what we're doing is a defensive operation to open up the strait, which in this context means precisely reducing, as precisely as I can say it, reducing the risk of passage to the point where these commercial freighters are willing to go. And it's just begun, so we haven't seen the results of it yet. They've escorted out a couple of American flag vessels. General Kane was asked, how many are we going to be escorting? And he says, I'll refer that to CENTCOM. That does tell me we will be escorting some. But basically, we've cleared a corridor, if there were any mines in it, on the south part of the strait. And we're imposing a dome of protection, I think Kane called it today, using naval assets, primarily guided missile destroyers, and then fighters, helicopters, and unmanned aircraft to provide reassurance to this community, the shipping community, that they can transit the strait safely.
So my understanding is that the United States is not relying on the Strait of Hormuz for our own oil, that we are drilling and producing quite a bit here stateside. And then I hear the president also say that there are many people who are being retrained to purchase their oil from us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is this resetting the table? Is that to the commerce of oil?
Yeah. The longer term consequences are going to be very good for our economy because after this incident, you can imagine supply chains shifting to rely more on a secure supply, which is the American supply. But that doesn't get oil prices down in the short term. So what we want to do is get freighters transiting. Now, here's what I expect, and I'm not an oil man, right? I actually served with some people who were, but I'm not. So what I expect to have happen is as people perceive the risk level dropping, and the markets perceive that, the futures price of oil will go down. In other words, the market will start to settle down, and that will bring down the price that we're all paying at the pump. Whether it will take the risk entirely out of the market, I don't know. And how long it will take to convince people, I don't know that either. I haven't looked at the price of oil today, But this is going to be a short-term operation. We've done this before, opening up the Strait. That was about 30 years ago. And we kept the Red Sea. We were doing the same thing when we were bombing the Houthis a year ago with regard to the Red Sea. So I've said all along we can open the Strait when we want to. I fully expect this is going to work. But, when it's going to reduce oil prices, how much, that I don't know.
I'm going to, I don't know if this is a faux pas, but I'm going to bring up something another guest said on my show and get your thoughts on it because I can't stop thinking about it. I had Fred Fleitz on, he's for America First Policy Institute. And his suggestion was that we should just declare victory. That the idea of victory being on the other end of a negotiation, there's no point in what we're doing right now that Iran is going to go, oh my gosh, you guys are right. Let's negotiate. And that we're going to be able to take their word for it. There's no trust between the United States and Iran. They don't even know who their leadership is. And if their leadership presents themselves, there might be people within the country that disagree with them and take them over. And then the negotiation is null and void, I suppose. Yeah. I'm wondering if that idea that we should just, if people want to hear victory declared, is it too soon to do that? Are there things that still need to happen for the United States to effectively be able to say, we won? Because what I hear the president say in press conferences every chance he gets is that they've won. They've decimated everything that they need to decimate, and it's finished. I just don't really know what's left to, like, where are the T's to cross and the I's to dot to declare victory. Yeah,
and you want this to be over. I mean, we all want war to be over. So there's one, Fred is right, in the sense that there are one of two possible endpoints here. One of them is either regime collapse or the regime giving in. That's one category of possibilities. The other is that once we have the Strait open, this is going to be the last act, I think, in the military part of the play, if you will. Once the Strait is open, we're going to go back to, if they don't agree to anything and they don't collapse, we're going to go back to a kind of status quo ante, where we are pressuring the regime economically, except it's going to be on steroids. Okay? In other words, the fighting will be over, at least with the Iranians. We will continue throttling them economically and see what happens. Oil prices will go down, so the world economy will return to normal or basically what it was before this. I think that's what you're talking about. Now, in terms of victory, let's talk in terms of what the objects of the mission were. The immediate object was to eliminate their defensive and offensive military capabilities. That has been accomplished. We also would like to, as the president said at the beginning, we'd like to get regime change or regime, what's your word for it? Regime alteration?
Reconfiguration.
Reconfiguration, I think. Yes. So he's playing for that possibility, and he'll continue to do it after this exercise with the Strait is over, because we'll just continue throttling them economically. So I am very satisfied with the outcome. I don't like the high oil prices, but I'm also very confident that we will get them down. It's not going to take years. And I think this is a huge victory for the United States. I really do. I mean, and we're going to enjoy the benefits of it for some time to come, because the region is going to be so much more peaceful, and that will make America so much more secure. We have to understand the Iranians, for 47 years, the Islamic Republic's been a deadly enemy of the United States, attacking us, wanting to attack us even more if they had the power to do it, and that has been removed.
We're speaking with Senator Jim Talent about the conflict in Iran. I think about other criticisms of what could happen, not what has happened yet, but what could have happened. And this is from my friends, people I know personally, and then also echoed by pundits who I hear on, cable news that are in the same position. These are people who fought in the Great War on the global war on terror. They lost people. They knew people. They saw people who died by those who were funded by Iran, by terrorists who were trained in Iran. They take the lives, the friends, the people who they knew. They know their names. They knew their families. Those people lost their lives, and they blame Iran for it. Those are the people who are out there saying, go get the job done, do it all the way, and then get the heck out of there. We're not there to win hearts and minds. Get the job done and get out. Do you feel as though that is the plan of this administration, or is there a reason why that shouldn't be the plan for this administration?
It's absolutely been the plan. Have they said to you why they think it's not the plan? I mean, I'm not trying to be provocative here because it's been crystal clear to me from the beginning that we wanted, again, at minimum, to destroy their capability to keep doing the things your friends understand they were doing and from which we've suffered all these losses. And then, if possible, if that clears the way to either get an overthrow of the regime or collapse of the regime or regime reconfiguration, well, yeah, we would do that because that's an even more complete victory.
Senator Taylor, I want to answer your question about what my friends say because there's an answer to that. It's because nobody who's been in charge, who's been the commander in chief, nobody has had the guts to go all the way to finish the job and get the heck out of there.
Well, I'm sensitive because I've been very supportive of the president through this whole thing. And I think history is going to look back on it as an absolutely brilliant exercise in the coordinated use of military, economic, and diplomatic power to advance the security of the United States. Now, I think one of the reasons people are concerned or in doubt here, and this is going to balance this out, because Trump's strength is not the 10 or 15-minute Oval Office speech behind the Resolute desk, calmly and thoroughly explaining what he wants to do and why he wants to do it.
That's an understatement.
He has said all of this over and over again.
Yeah.
Now, some of it, to be fair to the president, some of this is tactical. In other words, he doesn't want to say everything that's on his mind. But could he have done a better job? Maybe right at the beginning. I remember he stood in front, behind the podium with a "Make America Great" cap again. And if you read what he said, it's exactly what I've said to you. And when I listen to the military experts and others on the podcast, the people who go back and canvass every statement he's made, what they will say is he's been very, very consistent in what the goals are. And so have Rubio, and so has Hegseth and all the others. But, I mean, it's not like we used to see with Reagan, right? And we went, okay, we get it now. But that doesn't mean the substance of it hasn't been, I just think, really exceptional. So now we have to get the Strait open. I think the first time I said that to you was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we're doing it now. And then a question I would ask if I was at the press conference is why we didn't do this 2 weeks ago, and I suspect it has something to do with the fact that the president wants other nations to be responsible for this going forward, which I understand entirely.
Yeah. That's kind of the key factor, is to not feel like you have to be the police after the fact. Yeah. You need other people to have buy-in. I do want to ask you about when we went in last summer and, took the B-52s in there and hit the refrigerator door-sized target and blew up their nuclear ability. We did that. We declared victory. We said we incapacitated them in incapacitated their nuclear facilities and systems. And then we had to go back and we had to do more because President Trump says they need to not have a nuclear bomb. Was there an overstatement in the success of that first mission last summer? Or did we potentially find out more intel in between then and when they were sitting at the negotiation tables and the Iranians said, we've got enough for 11 nukes right now, in the face of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff? Why did we go in last summer and say we denuclearized them and then need to go back and do it again? And now do we need to go back and get the uranium that we buried under all the rubble?
Right, exactly. I think it's a little bit of the first, an overstatement, which is not beyond Donald Trump to do, right? I think it is mostly the second. Because after that strike, I read, for example, David Albright, he runs the foremost institute on nuclear proliferation, and I read his report and his estimation after Operation Midnight Hammer. And he didn't say it was destroyed, but he said it's been set back years and years and years, buried under the rubble of Fordham and Natanz. And you've heard me say that?
Yes.
So I think... But I don't think, no, it wasn't destroyed. I think what did happen was it became pretty clear that they were not going to negotiate, that they were trying to reconstitute their capabilities, that the Chinese were helping them, and that they were also reconstituting their ballistic missile, anti-air, and drone capabilities. And so my guess is if I could talk for 15 minutes with the president, when he saw the protesters hit the street, he realized how vulnerable the regime was, that we were at a period of maximum overmatch. In other words, when they were their weakest, we were the strongest because we could get forces in the region and we had the Israelis with us, and now was the time to take care of it. And I think he was right. The longer you wait, and this is one of the reasons I've said, Annie, the arguments against the war based on risk of retaliation are valid, but there are also arguments for the war, because I'd rather take that risk now when it's minimal because they're so weak than wait a couple of years until they've reconstituted a lot of these capabilities and then have to face them. So that's one of the reasons I think that this was such a strategically smart thing to do and really a presidential thing to do. And I've had people say, well, the politics of this is bad because gas prices are up. And my response has always been, I'm a politician, believe me, okay? But I don't want a president who will fail to take the necessary decisions because he's worried about midterms 6-7 months from now. And I don't think you do either.
If you have time for one more question here, because I hear this a lot as well. I hear a lot of people on the left suggest that if President Trump is successful here, he'll get us back to the JCPOA, which was the Obama negotiated plan with Iran. Tell me why you're grumbling.
No.
Tell me.
The JCPOA was a joke.
Tell me why.
I mean, in the first place, what everybody always cite is it was sunsetted. In other words, they got the sanctions relief up front. And in return for what was supposedly a pause or cessation in their nuclear program, but they didn't allow inspections. So, first of all, they were cheating on it. You knew that was going to be the case. Second, it didn't keep them from building more centrifuges so that they could race to a bomb anytime they wanted to race to a bomb. So it wasn't even the terms of it were not adequate. It was not verifiable. And they cheated on it, as you would expect. It was a really bad deal. Now, if they do come to the table and give us a deal, I'll just make book. It's going to be, we get to go in and get the uranium. We get to inspect wherever we want. It'll basically be the Libyan approach, where you give it up, and we know you've given it up. No.
Do we need to do we need to excavate that uranium?
That's their fig leaf for saying, the JCPOA took care of it. No, it didn't.
Do we need to go get the
We
uranium?
have all this money. We sent them billions of dollars, and they used it to fund building ballistic missiles and fund their proxies.
You summed it up at the very beginning by saying it was a joke. I could have just gone with that.
I'm going on too long.
No, you're not. Real quick, do we need to go get that uranium? Do we need to remove it?
Well, I will say yes, because I think people who are read into intelligence, you and I, are not read into, think we need to. I mean, if I was sitting there and absent some pretty strong intelligence to contrary, I think I would be inclined to say, I don't know how they get this stuff when it's buried underneath the rubble of a mountain. But the other thing is, we want them to surrender on our terms. It's a way for them to show, we really are going to start playing ball with you going forward. And so I think it's also sort of a test, if you will. And in any event, look, if they don't agree, as I said, we're going to finish this business with a Strait, and then we will go back to the status quo ante with an Iran that is now toothless and highly insecure at home. And that'll be a huge plus.
All right. Well, thank you, Senator, so much for your time and your insight. We love our conversations with you. So many of our listeners comment on them as well. So thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome, Annie.
Take care.